2. That was from a previous stream. What's up, guys? We are live. We got Chase Amante joining us from GirlsChase.com. You guys probably know the website because I've talked about it a few times. He was on, what was it, 3 years ago now? It was ages ago.
Yeah, I think it was about that, 3 or 4 years. I had my coronavirus lockdown mustache at the time.
Yeah, it was a while ago, so we can do another podcast. I know a few of you guys requested this in the comments. You had some questions for Chase. So get your questions in. Don't wait too long. So we're going to kind of go in order of questions. So, yeah, get those in now. But for anyone who's not familiar with you, do you want to give like a brief introduction?
Yeah, sure. So hello there. My name is Chase Amante. I run GirlsChase.com, which is the highest traffic men's dating device website on the internet. We opened our doors back in 2008.
Now have an article.
Now, how many articles?
No, I just have one on there, but.
Oh, yeah. Well, we got to get some more guest posts from you.
I'm down.
But we've had about 65 or 66 million visitors to the website now. Got over 15,000 customers at this point. And just so like background about myself. So I got into the game roughly like late 2004. You know, I kind of always had like a pretty good social intuition, but I got this like social anxiety when I was a teenager where I was like trying to be like the funny guy and get people to like me, but I didn't want to like get too close to anyone. So I ended up not developing a lot of these social skills. And I got to a point where suddenly I was looking around and I was like, everyone else is going on dates and getting girlfriends and I have no idea what to do. And I kind of retreated into my shell for a bit. And I hit like a rock bottom moment. And I was like, all right, well, I can't keep doing this, but I don't have the social circle built up that I can like meet girls through it. So I'm going to have to just start talking to like random women and learn how to flirt. And I decided to treat it like a video game because like I've been playing some different video games where you like build up your skills and everything at that point. And I just was like, I'll just treat this the same way. I'm just going to skill build. I'll go out, I'll treat girls as a skill building exercise. So I went out and I started talking to random girls and I was really terrible at first. But you can like see the progress as you're going, and then you start getting dates, start taking girls home, making out with girls, getting laid, then you're getting girlfriends, and start getting through it. And I met up with a bunch of different guys that were skilled. I took boot camps. I sought out mentors, teachers, and eventually I started having guys asking me to take them out in the field and train them. And I was like, I guess I've become the teacher now. And getting guys to I was one of the top posters. It was the number 7 highest rated poster on MASF, which was the old fast seduction website where Mystery and Tyler and Ross and a bunch of other guys came from. Well, Ross predated it, but he was big on there for a while. And I started having guys telling me to start a blog, and I was like, "Who reads blogs? I never read blogs. Like, would anybody come to that website?" But after they kept pestering me, I started it, and it ended up getting pretty popular. And here we are. So that's kind of that's the long and short of it. And I guess I would say that my personal style, because everyone's got their own style, their own thing. So my thing is getting girls to chase after you. And of course, you still got to make moves yourself because girls aren't going to do the whole thing for you. So you still got to be in charge of the process. But the idea is to get yourself to the point where girls are doing more of the work, they're investing more, and you're just leading them through the courtship.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I'm a big fan of your website. Your explanations on LMR, I think, are the best I've ever seen. Actually, quite often when people like really want detail on that, I just link them I mean, you have a few posts on this, but one of your like you have like kind of it's like a wiki almost like style. So I'll link like the whatever the page. I'll be like, yeah, check this out. But yeah, your website is dope. You mentioned so you had mentors. I'm curious, who were your mentors in the early days?
They actually have left the scene, so that they're running they ran the first natural game company, and then RSD came in and liked the like natural angle, so they took that name and had this kind of like bastardized version of natural game. But they have asked me not to talk about them. Otherwise, I used to reference them all the time because I was like, these guys deserve tons of credit. They're innovators, really brilliant guys. But they're like, could you please not mention us like in articles or interviews or anything? Because then guys see them out, and I don't know. I guess I haven't pried too much, but they probably have personal lives and they don't want to pick up coming back to haunt them.
Yeah.
formerly public guys who are now no longer public. But I also learned from other guys that didn't forswear. I did some training with Glenn P, Brad P. I don't know if you know them. They were New York based.
I've heard of Brad P.
Yeah, I did sessions with them, and then but the main guys I learned from are no longer public, unfortunately. Which one of them had like a brilliant book with cutting edge stuff that I still haven't seen introduction.
Yeah, I hate when good shit is no longer available. Were you familiar with the website swooptheworld.com?
Yeah. So they've got a forum. I think it's still active.
I think their whole website is like down. Like they took it down. Yeah. Let me check.
How does this space? Things come up, they're great for a while, and then at some point they disappear, never to be seen again.
I will never delete my content. I promise you guys. Even when swooptheworld.com is down. The website doesn't exist anymore because I had some really good shit, especially when it comes to travel and like pickup is like one of the best in my opinion. So that's a shame. But yeah, there's a few things like that where they basically go down. Let me ask you this question: Who do you think are like the best guys today? If you had to pick like someone like, for example, that like. If you were recommending, okay, let's say you could no longer do boot camps, but like your best friend is like asking, hey, who can I do a boot camp that's not you? Like, what would be your like top recommendations?
Well, I have to say that I'm biased because I'm not as familiar with all the companies that are current right now. There could be some up and comers or even some established guys that are doing a great job that I just don't know. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But I know from our own. So we've got our own coaches that do stuff, and from them, I could say Alec Rolstad in Europe he's maybe you've seen his articles on. He's the sex talk guru. So he innovated his own style where he's going up to girls and gets into talking about sex, but it's designed not in a way where he's propositioning them, but he's just talking about sex. Cool things about sex, how interesting it is, and girls get sucked into it, and it's designed to sexually prize him, so that. The more he talks about it, the more girls start thinking, wow, this guy really knows the stuff of sex. Like he can provide a hell of a sexual experience, but he's doing it indirect. So they start to pursue him. And he goes out, he posts some crazy numbers. He'll go out on a weekend and pull like 2 or 3 girls from like high-end nightclubs. He's super, super skilled. He can go into places where most guys just wouldn't be able to pull girls at all. Like beautiful girls, models, girls are on TV. And so as far as I'm concerned, he's probably the best active guy right now. Well, he's kind of he's like between cities, so he's like I'm a little bit rusty, but he's among the top guys that's active. But the downside there is that guys that want to coach with him, he's very picky about coaching clients. He usually only wants to work with more advanced guys. And the way he described it to me was like, he's like, it's fun coaching, but when I coach, then I can't go out and pick up girls. And like, I get into this not to be a coach, but I went out to be able to go pick up girls. So there's a bit of a downside there. But we've got another guy on the team, Tony, he's a day game guy, but he's really good with clients. Like he gets guys that are hard cases or whatever, and he gets them approaching, gets them getting results. He's been doing that for a long time as well. And Hector Castillo, who came up from GirlsChase, and then he eventually
left. I know Hector. He's been on the podcast before.
Yeah, so Hector's great. The clients are usually very happy with him. But those are the guys that I know about closely, and I'm sure there are other coaches that are good out there. There's been a decline in coaching, and it's hard to find guys that do in-field or guys that even do phone coaching anymore. There's just fewer and fewer of them. There used to be like a huge industry. You could go to like PUA training, and there'd be tons of boot camps all the time, and Love Systems and all these other companies are doing all these boot camps. Dried up, just kind of.
It's still happening. It's just the format has changed a little bit, so it's like it's moved like off forums to like YouTube, and now more so TikTok and Riz. Like there's a whole group of like people on Instagram and TikTok who maybe have like 1 million followers who we don't even know about. Like they're just completely non sequiturs on YouTube, or they don't write articles or anything like that. Usually a bit younger, like in their late 20s or mid 20s. But yeah, it just shifted a little bit. But
it's more split up. There's guys on different platforms and they're not connected. Used to be a whole community of guys.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I do think that it would be good if there's like one overarching like I don't know, community for where everyone would kind of come together, but that's not likely to happen. Here's a question I get a lot. I'm curious what your thoughts on this. People ask me, where do you see dating in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's interesting. So there's a pattern. So there are a few overarching patterns we've had. One was like the in the past, in the 1990s and early 2000s, there was like the nice guy friend zone era, where guys, it's like most guys are nervous, most guys don't know how to date, so guys will just pick something to do at whatever's like the most popular thing. So at the time, guys were doing the nice guy thing. They're like, okay, if I just become a girl's friend and I'm really nice with her, then eventually she's gonna see how great I am and she's gonna date me. And they made a bunch of romantic comedies about this, and like the bumbling nice guy, and he's like, oh no, my girl's dating another bad boy again, what am I gonna do? And eventually in the end he ends up with the girl. And so pickup came up in that era when you had all these nice guys, and that was training guys like, all right, here's how you got to be more the bad boy, you got to do this stuff to get the girl. But then around 2010ish, started getting more of the red pill coming, which was sort of an offshoot of pickup, but it was also its own thing. And as soon as that got big, it became a mainstream movement, and all these guys who used to be nice guys started hearing the red pill stuff, and they were like, you got to go up and shoot your shot, and then if she's not into you, then you don't need her. You got to move on. And so then that became, so instead of nice guys, now guys were like, okay, I got to shoot my shot. And they started doing this thing where now what I see, you can watch these Riz videos and like you see this thing again and again where guys are going up and they're like, excuse me, you're really beautiful, can I have your phone number? And girls like, no, sorry, I have a boyfriend. They're like, okay, and they give the guy a fake number or whatever, because it doesn't work, because she doesn't get to talk to you, or you don't put on any kind of attractive display, so there's no reason for her to be interested in you. It's not like swiping on an app where she sees your face and she's like, that guy right there. No, you gotta make that impression. But guys are doing this now instead of the nice guy thing, where they're like, okay, I'm gonna go shoot my shot, and then she wasn't into it, on to the next one. And that's kind of the thing where a lot of them, there's still guys doing the nice guy friend zone stuff too, but now there's this other thing that guys are doing that also doesn't work very well. And I see that a lot of guys have kind of gotten jaded on pickup. They're like, oh, that doesn't work. I saw like there were these two mechanics, like the autistic guys kind of ruined it for a bunch of people. They came on and made stilted approaches, and then guys were seeing that and they're like, look, that guy made 1,000 approaches and didn't get laid. So
yeah.
So now we've got this kind of weird thing where a lot of guys are resistant to advice if it's overly practical. So they want more like some like inner game stuff, but they want a lot of like reassurance, like, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. It's like these women, there's a problem with the women. And which is, I guess it's like affirming for guys to hear, but it's also, you can't change society, you can't change other people. So that's one of the challenges. Like a lot of guys don't want to receive advice. Kind of always that way, I guess, but it's more so now. But the other thing that we've been seeing is that you had the whole Me Too thing before, right? Especially in 2017 so before it was like building up, you had like the Title IX cases and all the false rape accusations in colleges in particular. But then we had the Me Too episode with like Hollywood. It blew up and it became this kind of witch hunt where guys were getting accused of sexual harassment. They're losing their jobs. There are all these online cancellations, and it went crazy. And it's kind of like dialed down, but there's this backlash now where guys are just terrified of it. And you talk to guys about approaching, and guys are like, no way, I don't want to like go up and talk to some girl and get my face put on TikTok and be put on blast. And this is like, you hear it from so many guys, like if you just talk to girls, she's just going to put you on blast on social media. And like almost never happens. It like happens to like a few weird guys or pushy guys, but most of what you're seeing on social media now is girls that are like crying. They're like, why don't guys approach me anymore? And then, but there's still this backlash. Guys are like, well, it's their fault because they asked for it. They were the ones doing the TikTok. And I think the thing that guys don't understand is like the nasty girls that were doing like the TikTok stuff and the Me Too stuff. It's not the same as like the average woman who's like, you know, I wish guys would talk to me more. Like those are like different groups of women.
Yeah.
For the one was had her place. So I think we're gonna have this backlash for a little while more, where guys are closed off about women, and they're like, you know, I'm gonna get attacked if I talk to women. I'm just gonna get ashamed. They're gonna shame me socially, and it'll be terrible. That'll last for a while, but then, you know, the market corrects, and it's like the stuff that guys are afraid of isn't really happening very much right now. Like, it still happens occasionally, because it always happens throughout history. You can read about false rape accusations from like thousands of years ago. Never stopped happening. But it was like a peak of it before, and then it's crashed back down again. So guys will figure that out eventually, and then at some point, guys are going to start getting like tired of looking at stuff online and be like, I want to meet girls. Like, actually meet girls. I don't want to be alone anymore. So then we'll see like a return, I think, to guys looking for more dating advice. I think we've kind of seen that too. We've seen like we were doing more app stuff a few years back, but there's like still a lot of people on apps, but there's also been some decline in sentiment towards apps. Like the big app companies, their market shares went down. So you see these like things go up and down, up and down. And so as far as predictions go, if I got to make a prediction, I would say that I think dating is going to normalize a bit more in a couple of years, because the Me Too thing has really died down, and then we've got the backlash against it now, where guys are like, I don't want to talk to women, I'll just get shamed. But I'm seeing more and more places, there's like seeing more and more voices of reason. When I check on conversations, I used to see more extreme stuff, but now I'm seeing more and more balanced perspectives. So I think it's returning to that. So hopefully it'll return to like a balanced place where guys and girls aren't at each other's throats so much for a while, until some other crazy thing happens to like kick off another witch hunt. But hopefully that won't be for a while.
Yeah, my observation is there's like a really big difference between what you see on social media and real life. It really kind of hit me when I started doing a lot of street interviews, where I would just go up and ask people questions on the street, and it just like the answers I got are very different than the answers that, for example, people online would give to the same question. And so, but there's a sample bias here, because like I'm out in the evening usually, right? I'm out like kind of where there's packed in the party area. So most people are going out. So like the real antisocial people, they're not even getting interviewed because they're not going outside. So there's obviously a sample bias there. But I think it's going to like, I don't think it's going to be radically different in 5-10 years. There might be a new app that dominates the marketplace. But at the end of the day, I think there's going to be a certain percentage of the population that's like has social skills and likes to socialize and goes out. And I think that still the majority of guys will still fall for the nice guy trap, no matter how much time passes. And there's going to be, I think, maybe a larger percentage of the population that becomes more introverted and like just fucking stays online all day. But yeah, like there's still plenty of girls, but that's going to be mostly men. So there's going to be plenty of girls out there for the picking, for those people who are willing to go out and take a small amount of social risk. But yeah, I do think like social media has turned people into like hermits. And so, but that's mostly men. Like there's something like, if you look at like people who are like addicted to social media, it's predominantly men. There's some women in there, but it's predominantly men. So in some way, you could look at this as an advantage, because when you go out, the ratio is going to be a little bit better, right? That's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I'll say to guys that are watching, you know, be careful about guys that you're listening to, especially guys that are negative online, because the guys that are like, you know, the incel guys, black pill guys, some of the red pill guys that are just constantly online. Like the reason they're online so much is because they don't have a cool life going on. Like the guys with cool lives usually are not online constantly. They're not on X all day, or not on social media all day posting a ton of replies, because they're like, I don't have the time for this shit. I gotta meet this girl. I gotta like hang out with my friends. I got stuff to do. So the guys that are like, oh, my life sucks. Life is horrible. I can't get any girls. Those are the guys that are online. They're like, oh, women are terrible. Like, you know, they'll just reject you and put you on social media. So you gotta be careful about. I think I've seen some stuff where it's like, you know, here's, you know, here, like talking to this anonymous person online, like what's this person actually is like, not someone you would really talk to in real life. You saw like what this person looks like, which is the case for a lot of the negative Nancy's online.
Yeah,
So,
that's
like,
true.
Tweet interviews, if you want to talk to those guys, you got to like kick down their door and get into their dungeon and be like, what do you think?
Just
Go-
covered in like fucking
date.
common like fucking burrito wrappers.
Yeah. He's shocked to see another human being in the flesh. It's like, oh, we got to
Fire
talk.
one up. Oh, almost hit me in the eye, man.
Throwing Coke cans at you.
Yeah. Mom, get him out of here. Yeah. All right. We got quite a few questions from the audience now piling. Hey, man, delete my old account, create a new one with the same phone number, and I get no matches. I think I'm shadow banned. We'll use a new phone number tomorrow, but I'm panicking. Like, why panic? Like, this is not that serious. Like, even if you are shadow banned, it's like not that serious. There's no reason to panic. Absolutely zero reason to panic.
Well, if you're doing mostly apps, that could be the reason panicking. Because he's like, if he's thinking, I'm cut off from my dating lifeline, then that's scary.
Yeah, but you can always get a new device. They cost like $30 on eBay. Get a new phone number. It's like $5 a month, and then bam, you're like all set. It's like not. Yeah,
Gotta go super spy.
Yeah, look. I deleted my old account with the same phone number. I got the match. I think I'm shadow banned. I don't know how much time has passed, but you do have access to me. I know this person, so yeah, I need to know more details. But don't panic. It's not that big of a deal. Not that serious. Okay, here's a specific question for you. Chase once said routines are meant for advanced gamers. That surprised me since most say they're training wheels for beginners. What's the reasoning? Okay, good question.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, Bill, the thing with routines is I alluded to it earlier. So what was like the downfall of the mainstream pickup industry? So like pickup was like really big when Neil's book, The Game, came out in 2005. And that there's like a crush of interest in seduction because it was a New York Times bestseller. Everyone was talking about it. Women were reading it. And then Mystery got his show on VH1. And so it was mainstream. They were doing all these interviews and everything. You had Ross Jeffries doing interviews in the 1990s. And it was like this curious thing. But then it like became trendy from like 2005 to like 2010 or so, or a little bit after. And what happened was you had all these pickup artists who had these routines they developed that were pretty good, but guys would come in that did not have social skills, they didn't have social awareness, and they would start running routines, but they wouldn't be delivering them the way that the skilled pickup artists would be using them. And it was one of the things I noticed when I was new. I was new, but I still had like good social intuition. I'm like learning these skills from the ground up, but I could still like, so I was watching one of Mystery's videos, and I'm watching him talking about the stuff he does, and he's talking about routines. Everything he talks about is tactical and technical. But I'm like, this is a really charismatic guy. Like the way he's talking, the way he's moving himself, the way he uses his voice, his eyes, facial expressions. I'm like, this is a cool, likable guy. Like if you just met him talking about anything, you'd be interested in what he had to say. And this is something that you will see most new guys that don't have any kind of like social background will miss. And in the early days of pickup, there were these layers where you'd have a pickup layer in every city where there was like a group of guys who would meet up to go and practice pickup, and you'd have like 20 guys descend on one bar, and they'd all be hitting on chicks in the bar. And I went out with these layers a couple of times, and there'd be like a couple of cool guys there, but most of the guys are nervous and introverted, and they'd be delivering routines, but they're doing them with like a monotone voice, an unexpressive face. It's wooden, and it's like they're saying a script. So they're approaching girls, and they're like, hey, who do you think lies more, men or women? Or they're like, they're doing the jealous girlfriend routine or whatever. And the girl's just like, why is this guy saying this to me? Like, I don't understand, because the nonverbal stuff isn't there. And so I would say it depends somewhat on what kind of routines you're using. There are some routines that can be helpful for beginners, but more like shorter routines, like something I like is the 3 Favorite Animals game, which we can either link to in the description or what have you. But like that one, I think is useful for beginners once you're into the conversation or once she's hooked or close to hooked. There's like some little things you can do, but I think a lot of routines, especially advanced routines or things that are designed to like create an emotional effect in girls are usually better for guys that maybe not necessarily advanced per se, but at least have enough social acumen that they can deliver them in a charismatic, attractive way. And the girl isn't going to be like, is this guy just saying something that he heard somewhere? Like, why is he saying this to me? It doesn't make sense. You got to be able to at least have that baseline where you're sociable and it seems like this is something that you just thought of or came up with, and it's not something that you're repeating that you got from somewhere.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with everything you said. If a girl thinks you're like running a script, you're like done. It's like really cringe for girls, and just I think anyone honestly. Yeah. Like imagine like a guy came up to you, like a fan, or like let's say he wants to do business with you, but he's like you feel like he's running a script. Like, what would your reaction be? It'd be like, okay, bro, yeah, okay, take it easy now. Like, hello there. Who do you think is a better businessman, Chase or Alex? Like, I don't know. Yeah, so I feel like that stuff can be really cringe.
Notes.
I think one of Mystery's mistakes was assuming that the things that work for him will work for other people or the average person, and he didn't really realize how unique of a character he is in that sense. Like the average dude tries doing magic tricks, it's going to come off really cringe, but it works for Mystery, right? Because he's a skilled magician. He's a very good magician, right? So yeah, I generally recommend guys to avoid routines. I think it's good to have some questions that in the back of your mind that you can ask. For me, it's just instinctual, but like some of the questions I ask a lot is like, "What's your background?" Because then I can talk about like ethnicity and leverage that. I might say like, what are your plans for today? That's a question I use a lot. I might say, yeah, like shit like that. Like, I think it's good to have a few backup questions that work well for you. But yeah, you don't want to be more complex than that. Kind of like you said, simple stuff maybe, but nothing like overly complex where it's like you're reading lines or whatever. And yeah, it's better to be like a little awkward but authentic rather than like very scripted, in my opinion.
And the thing I'll throw in about routines, it doesn't get reported much, but one of the things Mystery said was, it's like, Mystery method is not for beginner seducers. You need to be able to at least go out and get results, get some one-night stands sometimes, then you can start using Mystery method. That was his prescription for it. And I have multiple guys I know who were skilled natural gamers who switched to using routine-based game and said that's what took them to the next level. So it gets you very predictable results. But the thing is, if it can get too predictable, and guys that start doing it will be like, it's like pushing buttons. You go up to girls and you say stuff, and they always have the same replies, and it goes the same way, and you end up banging them, but it's not very fulfilling because it's like, it almost starts to feel robotic to you. Like, but the girls, it's like, oh, this is so fun and interesting, but it becomes a little too predictable.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I do know guys like that too. Red pill came from guys who failed to pick up because they lack the courage and discipline to improve and succeed. I generally agree with that, but not partially. But I think there's also a lot of people who are like gravitate, especially towards the pickup audience, would be people who were hurt by a woman. They had a bad experience. They were dumped. They were friend zoned. Like they legitimately had a bad experience, right? Like, but instead of like dealing with it in a healthy way, which is like, like that girl fucked me over, but here are the mistakes I made. I shouldn't have let her in my life in the first place. I missed all these red flags. They process it in a way that like, oh, all women fucking suck. And I think that's when, you kind of have issue.
Yeah, and I would say in the beginning of Red Pill, it was more niche, and you had more guys that were like pickup guys that just went into Red Pill, and some of the guys were skilled. There's like intermediate guys and high skilled guys, and then it started becoming this mainstream thing, and you had more and more like regular guys that were just mad at women pouring in, and there was more and more of an anti-pickup sentiment coming in because once you get like, I think most regular people don't want to have to change themselves. So like, I should be good enough the way I am. I shouldn't have to change anything. And so when you combine that with like some bitterness, then you have a lot of like pushback against. And so it was a weird thing because in the early Red Pill, you had pickup guys and you had guys that were like anti-pickup, and they're all kind of in the movement together. But I think over time, the anti-pickup guys pushed out the pickup guys, and it became a lot more about venting. There's still like some pickup adjacent guys in Red Pill, but it's more about the minority.
Yeah, that's true. And I think a lot of it is also like almost like taking the easy path. It's like, hey, I don't want to get rejected, so I'm going to work on all this other shit so that I don't have to deal with getting rejected. It's like, well, I'm going to focus on my career, which is like, what?
Monk mode.
Yeah. Oh yeah, monk mode. Yeah, yeah. Like I'm gonna focus on my job, like which is good. But like, if your idea is that like, well, once I make more money, the girls will come to me and I won't have to deal with rejection, is like that's factually false. So yeah. Anyway, Chase once said attraction can be created or destroyed. What do you mean by this?
Yeah, so that's one. It caused a big problem in our community for a while because we had guys who were like, attraction's either. So I had an article called "Attraction's Either There or It Isn't," and what I was talking about is you have basically two kinds of attraction in my mind. You have the initial like just their chemistry that like you see a girl and instantly you're attracted to her and you start talking to her, and a lot of times it's reciprocal. You talk to her and there's like you see her eyes light up and she's like, wow, this guy, and you're like, wow, this girl, and there's something there. So I call that fascination. Like for whatever reason you see a girl and you just go wow, and you have this primal attraction that can never be created no matter what you do. You're never going to create primal attraction if it isn't there when the two of you first meet. However, there is the other kind of attraction, which I call excitation, which you could definitely create, and that's where you're getting her more and more excited about you, building up anticipation, and she is being attracted to you in that way. So I think the word attraction is just like something, like a magnet. Something is drawn towards something else. And when you dice into it, there are different ways to do that, right? You've got those, in my opinion, you've got those two different forces. The primal one, and that's the one I mean cannot be created. But the other one you can always create, so long as you have an in, right? If you get the girl who's like completely shut off to you, and she's just not listening to anything you're saying, and she's just shut down, then it's very difficult to create even excitation with that girl. Sometimes you can find a way, like if you're like, okay, I'm just going to ignore this girl. You do group theory, like I'm going to talk to I'm going to look really cool, talking to some other people in front of her, and then I'll get like some hot girls flirting with me. So then she might get a little intrigued, and now you've got it in, and you can start exciting her, and you can build attraction, the excitation kind of attraction that way. But the primal kind, where there's that deep fascination, that's just there or is it there? And one of the reasons why I differentiate those is it's my opinion that if you're going to have a relationship, you should always look for girls that you have that deep, primal, immediate attraction to. So I see a lot of guys get into relationships where they're like, I wasn't that into this girl at first, but, we started hanging out and I was comfortable and I decided to give it a shot and it's okay. And I'm like, personal preference, but I look at like relationships where I'm like, it's just okay. I'm like, I don't know if I really want to ever be in a relationship where I'm like, it's just okay.
Yeah.
It seemed like a good way to spend your time. So in my opinion, always be looking for that primal fascination attraction. And when you see it, those are your girlfriend candidates. And the rest of the time, you can still create attraction through excitation, but those probably won't be girls that you end up choosing to keep around longer term unless you're cool with settling and just having an okay relationship.
I see your point, and I agree with a lot of what you said, but the one part that I gotta disagree with is destroyed. Like, let's say a girl meets a guy and she has that primal attraction, and that guy just fucking shits his pants. Like he just fucking shits his pants. Wouldn't that primal attraction be destroyed, or do you disagree?
The primal one, I don't think it can be. So like I've seen so many. From all the ones I've seen where there's like primal attraction, she'll be disgusted. She'll be like, oh, like she's not gonna want to go to bed with you when you shit your pants, but you can recover from it. That's the thing. Like,
can you?
Primal. I mean, you gotta pull out all the stops, but you got a pretty good race skill. I had the worst Taco Bell ever. I'm so sorry. They murdered me at the Taco Bell today. I mean, have a good reason, but. And then she sees like a bunch of hot girls chasing after you. She'll be like, okay, maybe I should give this guy a chance. But like with like if there's not the primal attraction there, it's really hard to recover. But I mean, it's like most of the time you guys screw up. It's not gonna be like you shit your pants.
No, probably not.
It's gonna be something lesser than that. It's more easily recoverable. But in my opinion, and based on my experience, you can recover from pretty much anything if that default attraction's there. If it's not there, then you kind of get like a certain number of chances, and after that, you're just not going to come back generally.
Interesting.
Unless you see it on TV or something, and she's like, "Oh, looks like he's making it," then maybe she'll give you another shot.
Yeah, interesting. I guess that would be one of the few things I would disagree with you on, because I feel like any kind of attraction can be destroyed with enough stuff. Like aside from shitting yourself, like I kind of have this perspective from going out with like really good looking guys. And the one specific guy that I'm thinking of, he's like a Chad, and I remember going out with him, and like he would get a lot of like initial attraction. Like I would see like a lot of girls were really into him, but then he wasn't like really that confident. He was a little awkward, and I would just kind of watch their attraction just drop, and then they would get bored, and then they would talk to me or they would move on, right? So I've just seen enough of that where I'm like, I think you can fuck anything up, no matter how much initial attraction you have. Obviously, you have more leeway if you have a lot of initial attraction. Like there's a lot more fucking up left to be do. Versus if you're like don't have the initial attraction, you're kind of walking a tightrope. But I feel like all of it can be fucked up with enough like mistakes.
The one point I'd make there is that the attraction based on appearance is not necessarily primal. It can be if the other things are there, but it's like you can see it with yourself, right? You go out to the club and there's like a really hot girl with like her hair done perfectly and like her tits and everything, and you get excited, but it's not. You start talking to her and it's not like there's a deep draw. It's more like you're just sexually excited.
Yeah,
I think that's what looks will do a lot of time. And for me, that's still excitation. Like it's still like the manufactured attraction where she's done something with her look or he's got something going on with his look that is exciting, but then the rest of it isn't there. You're just like, Same with like you talk to the hot girl, but she's like really boring or like standoffish, and you're like, still kind of want to bang her, but like, I don't know. Different from like the girl you talk to and like, this girl, that's my wife right there. I know what it is. That's the one that pretty hard to long term. You can still get her disappointed about you.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we can agree disagree on that one. Cold approach is hard as fuck. I know a lot of guys who've done hundreds to 1,000 approaches and only won in a few days, myself included. Yeah, that just means that there's something wrong with your cold approach strategy. Probably multiple things that are off, whether it's inner game or out game or probably some combination of both. But yeah, like if you can go to the gym for 2 years, and if you're like not following a good workout strat, like you're not doing progressive overload, I've seen people go to the gym for a year or two and make no progress, right? That can happen. So you need the right strategy. And unlike the gym, you also need to have the right inner game strategy. So, yeah.
And that's totally it. And the other thing I'll say is working with a lot of guys, you'll see guys that come in and they get it right away because they're coming in a way that is attractive and likable. And other guys that are like, there's something wrong, like you said, and it's not always. A lot of times, it's not the words or even the approach angle. Sometimes it is, and usually guys have blind spots where they just don't know what they're doing wrong. And if you're talking form, whatever, unless you're there with them or you have some, it's like an audio recording or whatever where you can hear it. A lot of times you just like it'll be invisible to the guy because he's not able to give you the information. But it'll be stuff like he's not smiling, or his voice tone is awkward, or he's got like a little bit of awkward body language, and the girl picks up on it and she's reflecting back to him. And so it is challenging because guys are, especially if a guy doesn't have that social background, he's having to reinvent himself in all these ways that he doesn't even understand how to do. And that's the challenge. It's a very difficult thing to do, especially for guys that don't have that background.
Yeah. What is Chase's opinion on direct game versus indirect game?
Yeah. We've had these debates. I've had them since the community started. I remember the guy that I learned from was debating with Style about it, and Style was talking about like you can't get a 9 or a 10 with direct game, and the guy that I learned from was like, no, like I picked up a 9 off the street and had sex with her 2 weeks ago when I opened her direct. And so they had this back and forth. And I try to be an apostle of like as many different schools as possible. And I've done a lot of indirect and I've done a lot of direct, and I like both of them. And in my opinion, they are better suited to different situations. So I think that direct works better when you're approaching in some way where, so I think indirect is should be kind of like the default because it's lower pressure and chill. But there are a lot of situations where indirect does not apply. Like if you're going to stop a girl on the street, it's pretty hard to do indirect unless you're asking for directions. So if you're going to stop her on the street, you're going to be like, oh, it's beautiful weather we're having, right? She's like, why did he stop me on the street to ask me how comment on the weather? Doesn't make sense. So the bolder the approach, the more you need to lean towards direct. The more casual the approach, the more you should lean towards indirect. Like the same thing. If you're approaching very casually, you don't usually want to open direct. Like, oh, excuse me. And then you're going to deliver your big, direct, bold compliment, and it's incongruent. So the thing is that some situations are much better suited to a casual and more innocuous approach, and especially situations where you're going to approach where you may not be able to get away from the girl for a while. So if it goes bad, then it's going to be awkward. Like if you're sitting next to her in a cafe, or you're taking a seat next to her on the train or bus or airplane, or you're in class or you're at work. You don't want to walk up to your classmate and be like, excuse me, but you have the most beautiful legs of any girl in this classroom. She's like, oh, thank you, but I have a boyfriend. And you're like, all right, take a seat next to her, pull out your notebooks. So anyway, how'd you do on that test? Now it's really awkward. So indirect for more situations where you want to avoid awkwardness if it doesn't go as planned, and also for situations where direct would just be too much, like pull out the big guns and stuff like that. But direct for situations where indirect isn't going to work because it's going to seem incongruous, or if you're trying to move really fast and you just don't have time and you're like, I just want to make a big splash and see how she reacts, and if it's not great, then I just want to move on. Then pull out the direct.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I agree with that. Does Chase support the passport bro movement?
So I gotta check a box. Yes, I support. No, I'm totally against that. Take their passports away, make them stay. So I mean, so first off, my opinion is that you should develop your game at home before you start going abroad, because I have traveled to a lot of countries. And I like travel, and I love meeting girls from different countries, and I love meeting girls from America as well. And what I have seen is that you'll have some guys that it's like cold approach, right? Some guys jump into it and right away they pick it up, and they've got enough social background that they can ease into it, and they're doing decent from the beginning. And you've got other guys that are clueless and they really struggle. And it's the same with passport broing. If a guy jumps in unprepared, so if a guy is similar cold approach, if he's not skilled with girls yet and then he goes to another country, then if he's already got enough social acumen, then he can do okay. But I'll see a lot of guys that are in countries where other guys are getting laid very easily, where I can get laid very easily. And these guys will come in and they'll be like, I can't get anything with girls here. The girls are just too conservative. And you look at the guy, you're like, conservative? Like, these girls? Are you kidding me? Guys these girls are too conservative. I can't get a girlfriend. I can't have sex. I don't know what to do. And that's because the guy, he couldn't get girls back home. So he goes abroad and he takes the same skills with him. You got to know how to be able to get in front of a girl and, I don't want to say shoot your shot, but you got to be able to make your approach and then do a little seduction to get her into you. And it's best learned on your country women. And generally speaking, for a lot of guys, not every guy, but for a lot of guys, a lot of times your country women will give you a little bit of a harder time compared to women from somewhere else. Somewhere else, you're exotic, you're different, get some leeway. If you do something a little bit awkward, she's like, oh, well, that's just his culture, I guess. She doesn't know. Whereas at home, she's like, all right, well, I know I've had 100 other guys hit on me. I know how it's supposed to go. So you're getting the hard filter. But that will train you and give you the skills. And once you're getting girls in your home country, then you can go to another country and play on easy mode, definitely. As far as as a lifestyle, I mean, if you like it, then I don't see a problem with it. There are advantages and disadvantages to traveling to different countries or living in a different country. I mean, humans have been doing it since the dawn of time. Like we migrate around. It's like there are always mass migrations. That's just how we've spread all over the globe, right? There's some of us that are travelers and adventurers, and we want to go to new places. And there's some of us that are homebodies, or we've got like the circle of friends. We got the lifestyle built up. We want to stay at home. So whatever appeals to you, I'm cool with that. I'm not going to tell anyone how to live his life. We all got options.
No, I agree with everything you said. Actually, I think that's usually my answer too. Something along the lines of that. People consider me good looking. How would my game differ from the average guy? It wouldn't. Your game doesn't differ whether you're good looking or average looking. I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the one thing I'd say is more focus on attainability. And if you're not familiar with the concept of attainability, so attainability is like the guys that I learned from had an attraction model they called VAC, value attainability compliance. And attainability is a concept that once you get it is pretty groundbreaking. And basically, so you've got value, which everybody understands. You're valuable to girls. And what a lot of guys will do when they get into approaching is they really focus on their value. And if it doesn't go well with a girl, they're like, I guess she didn't think I was valuable enough. I got to be more valuable. And so you'll get these guys that are like pumping their value way up, and they approach girls and they're like, I've got, I do all these cool things, and I've got a really cool job, and I make all this money, and I'm really high status, and I've got all these friends, like all these girls want me. And what happens is the girl's like, oh my God, this guy's too much for me. Like I can't, I'm out of his league. Why would he want a girl like me? Like he's already got so much going on. That's attainability. If she doesn't feel like she can attain what she wants with you, then she's going to auto reject. She's like, this guy, I can't get this guy. Okay, I'm not interested. If she feels like she can't access your value, it's like you'll see it with guys. Like a guy approaches like a super hot girl. Well, like a lot of guys won't approach a super hot girl. Be like, look at that super hot girl over there. Why don't you go talk to her? And be like, no, that girl like that wouldn't be interested in me. Or he'll be like, no, all those girls are bitches. Whatever. That's auto rejection. He doesn't feel like if he thought that if he saw that girl and she's like really sweet and nice and she was like, oh, I wish I could meet a guy just like him. And then suddenly he would get interested because she would feel attainable and be like, oh, maybe I can get that girl after all. Maybe I'll go talk to her now. And guys, especially, and not just good looking guys, but anyone who's becoming more and more attractive, you'll see this as your value goes up. You become less and less attainable to women. And you start having problems where you're like, it's so weird. Like, I feel like I've gotten a lot more attractive. Like, my fashion's better. I've lost weight. I've got better hair. My voice is better. I've got cool facial hair. Everybody says I'm cooler now, but suddenly women are being a lot colder to me. I don't know why. And that's attainability. You got more valuable, but if you haven't done things to make yourself more attainable, suddenly you start feeling out of reach to more and more of the girls you approach. And the other thing guys will see is if you approach a lot, sometimes like the cuter girls are nicer with you, and like the fat or ugly girls get really mean, and you're like, why are they so mean to me? It's attainability. They're like, why is this guy talking to me? Like, this guy, like, I know this guy doesn't like me. He's not attracted to me, so why is he talking to me? So you got to focus more on that. And like easy ways are just like not bust on girls too much. Teasing is really powerful, but you got to make sure that it's very playful and light, not overdo it. The uglier you are, the more you can get away with busting on girls because they're like, oh, ha, 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 whatever. But as you get more and more attractive and higher value, you got to be careful about it because you can blow girls out if you go too far. Same thing with like you still got to challenge them, but it's like finding the right balance for your level of value and attractiveness right now. And then that changes as you improve. So the attainability questions to keep in mind are, is this for real? Does he respect me as a friend? And can a girl like me get a guy like him? So if she's saying yes to all of those, she's going to feel that you're attainable. If she says no to any of those, then you're not attainable. And what you'll see, the way to diagnose it is if girls are acting too nice with you, then the problem is you are too attainable. You're too easy to get. No challenge, which makes you seem not very valuable. And so girls will be nice because they want to take care of your emotions. They're like, oh, it's sweet that a guy like that would come up to me, whatever, even though he has no chance with me, but I'll be nice to take care of his emotions. If girls are acting cold with you and harsh, then that is a symptom of auto rejection where they feel like they can't access your value because you're unattainable to them. And that's where, just like the guy that's like, oh, that girl's just, girls like that are a bitch. Girls do the same thing. They're like, oh, that guy's just an asshole. Like, I don't like guys like that. The guys like that are jerks. When she's doing that, it's because you're too unattainable. So that means that you need to bring your attainability back into, make yourself more attainable so that she feels like she can access your value, and then she's not trying to push you away to protect your ego. So that's the thing. And a lot of guys will run into that, especially good-looking guys or more valuable guys, socially valuable guys, outgoing guys. Guys will keep thinking they're having a value problem when a lot of times it's attainability. Look for the reactions.
I see your point. What do you think? Like, my observation has been that ugly guys actually get meaner responses on average than good-looking guys. Like, what do you think about the concept of like pretty privilege? Like, I feel like if you're good-looking, um, girls are, I don't know, in my opinion, they're less likely to be mean to you. But you're saying it's the opposite?
Depends on what the guy's doing. So like if an ugly guy comes in and he's being like really bold and taking chances with her, in that case, it can be offensive if he's not also building attraction. You know, you'll get like ugly guys that are smooth, and that's the. You ever heard the term "sexy ugly"?
No.
So that was I think it was a term popular in like the mid 2010s on like women's forums and stuff. Like sexy ugly, the sexy ugly guy. He's ugly, but there's something about him that just makes him really sexy, and you can't put your finger on it. So like the sexy ugly guys that come up and they're smooth, they can get away with all kinds of stuff. But the guys that are uncalibrated, that are ugly, that are coming up. So there's like, we can think about it like multiple kinds of attainability, where if you're like ugly and not behaving in an attractive way, then she's gonna be like, well, maybe he's a nice guy or whatever. But then if you're behaving like hitting on her in an overly direct way, then it's like, God, I can't even. He's not even attainable as a friend. Jesus. And then you'll get like the harsh reactions. So it depends on what the guy's doing. If you're coming across too strong and you also don't have the attractiveness to back it up, then you'll get a bad reaction there as well. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. That's food for thought. Having pickup skills is kind of like knowing how to match a trick is done. The magic fades away. Do you encounter people jaded by their good results and wishing they could still have dumb magical luck? I've never encountered anyone like that. What do you think?
Well, I have, and I mentioned it briefly earlier. So the biggest one is the guys that get guys who are skilled advanced and get into routines. When I first moved to San Diego, I had a buddy, his name was Mike. He was an Asian ex-drug dealer, ex-bodybuilder, really interesting guy. He had been a natural, so he was picking up tons of girls just as like a drug dealer, bodybuilder, living in Ann Arbor. And then he met this friend of mine who was a pickup artist, and the two of them started talking, and he learned about all this pickup stuff, and he got really interested in it. And he's like, "Oh, crazy! I didn't even know that there are these guys that are out there that like learn to do this." And so he self-taught himself mystery method after he was already really good with girls. And he started doing these mystery method routines. And he would go out to nightclubs and he'd run the mystery method routines. And he'd pick up the hottest girl in the club, take her back and fuck her. And he just did this over and over and over and over again. And he said what happened was it got so predictable, the responses girls were taking. And he's like, I lost a lot of like faith in humanity, because you just go up and you say the same thing to a girl, and different girls all respond the exact same way. There's like a few different responses that girls will give, but it's always like the same stuff again and again. And you just run through the pickup and it's like identical. It starts to feel like, like our human, like, do people even have free will? They all respond the same way to this material. And so at the time I met him, he'd like given up on mystery method, because he was like, I want to go back to my natural game. I'm so sick of the like mechanical responses from women. Even if I get lower results, I just want to like see if I can make it work more organically. And I interviewed a longtime Playboy named Skills, who was also a similar thing. So Skills comes from the seduction community, and he was a natural. And he ended up meeting our Alec Rolstad, who goes by Teamster on the forums. And Alec has all these sex talk habits where he's got routines that he takes girls through when he's talking to them, like the 8 types of orgasm routine, where he's talking to a girl and he's like, did you know that like women can actually have 8 different ways that they can orgasm? And girls are like, oh, that's really interesting. He starts going through them, talking about them, and girl gets turned on. But he's got all these different sex talk routines he goes through, and girls have pretty predictable responses. So Skills got into that. He started delivering the sex talk routines, and the same thing that happened to Mike happened to Skills. And girls were just, he's like, it was crazy. Like 5 lays in 7 days. And like, I'm getting laid like crazy, but the girls are all responding in identical ways. It's like, I got like disillusioned and I was in like a weird state. I started to like hate the game. And so then he decided to drop the routines and go back to the natural route. And then he figured out like ways that he can use sex talk routines, but like make them more his own, more organic, and not following the script so much, which is actually what Alec recommends. Like a lot of guys, when they're learning, will take his routines and do them verbatim. But Alec says he never delivers them the same way. He always does them a little bit different, because otherwise, same thing for him, it gets too predictable. So it happens most with routine guys. To an extent, it can happen even if you're not doing routines, but pretty much every guy I've known that's like had like a crisis of faith, or he's losing faith in humanity, is like a hardcore routine guy, where he's got a stack and he's running girls through predictable material, and he's just getting the same responses again and again and again from girls. And then it feels like, I don't know, it's like playing a video game where you already know all the moves and you just do it over and over again, and like you're winning, but it's like, I don't know, I'm not enjoying it anymore. Just pushing the buttons. So the solution for that is switch over to more natural game, where you can still use routines, but just switch them up enough that the responses from women aren't too predictable, and then it's more fun again.
Yeah, I don't know. The way I would describe it is that, like, when you first start doing pickup, you have these big dopamine highs when you have success, and eventually the dopamine highs start to wear off. It's like your first time going to like a really nice restaurant. It's like you're like really excited about it. Second, third time, it's awesome. And then eventually, after a year of going to like 5-star restaurants, the appeal wears off. It's kind of like that to a higher extent. But at that point, that's usually when people get into relationships, is once the dopamine highs of like just fucking random girls wears off. Which it doesn't wear off for everybody. I know some people who it hasn't worn off for, but it wears off for a lot of people. Around, I don't know, 200 leg count, 100 leg count, 400 leg count, somewhere around there.
Yeah, most guys get to a point where you've done everything you need to do with it. Like, all right, well, I don't have the same motivation I used to have.
Yeah. Chase said RSD stole the natural game concept and misused it. But then what is true natural game, and is it superior to mystery method speed seduction?
The true natural game is about learning skill sets, like the skill set to hold conversations, to flirt naturally, where you're not using routines at all. It's just a skill set that you've built where you're using these skills and just coming up with things on the fly, organically, in the moment, yet still hitting the right points. So the RSD natural game, from what I understand, I was never like a big RSD follower, but I had different guys explaining it to me, saying, RSD was kind of like skill based, but they're still using a lot of routines in the thing they're calling natural game. Whereas natural game, as I learned it, was no routines at all. We're like, here's how you flirt, here's the conversation, here's how you screen and qualify, here's how you move through these things. But it's all putting together stuff on the fly so that you've got the skill set. And it's harder at first. There's a steeper learning curve, because you got to learn how to do all this different stuff. And you don't have the training wheels of routines. You don't have anything you memorized or repeating. You don't have lines that you're using. You're just going out and you're like, okay, I know I need to create this effect somehow. So let me just talk and see if I can try and create that effect, like the effects that you're going for. But as you do it, you develop the skill where eventually you can just roll into any situation, and it doesn't matter when you meet her. You can meet her in the club. You can meet her waiting for the bus. You can meet her standing at the light to cross the street. You can meet her at a social event. You can meet her at work or in class. You can meet her anywhere. You can meet her from online, wherever it is, because just plunk you into a situation. You don't need to rely on some routine where like, oh no, I'm not in the bar. I can't use this routine. What do I do? You just got the skills. You just talk to anybody. Just like anyone that's naturally smooth, because that's what natural game is. Natural game is like guys that just go up to talk to people and they manage to say the right thing in pretty much any situation because they just know what to do and say. So that is natural game. It's building up the skill to just be naturally sociable and socially savvy and able to drive things forward to the end that you want to achieve when you're talking with whoever you're talking to.
I faced thousands of rejections. Where should you turn if you want to get results? Gym and finance or approach you? None of these would be my answer. If you are just getting rejection after rejection from cold approach, you need some guidance. You need a cold approach coach, someone that can point out what you're doing wrong and point out your mistakes. So going to the gym is good. Finance isn't going to do shit. Doing more cold approach, I don't see what the point of that is unless you get guidance, because you're just going to keep making the same mistakes. So that's what I would do, is I would get someone that is a good teacher to basically show you what mistakes you're making, and then keep going. But yeah, just kind of keeping doing the same thing over and over again, keep making the same mistakes, you eventually just going to get burned out.
Yep, 100%. And the going to the gym or finance usually isn't going to improve things. I've seen a lot of guys where they're like, I got ripped, I got all this money, and I thought that was going to change things for me with girls. I'm sure you've seen it too, Alex. And they're like, I put years into this, and I've got this great body, I've got this great lifestyle, and I love it, but I'm still not getting the success with girls at all. And a lot of times those guys end up turning to escorts because they're like, I got the money now, it's just easier. I just pay a prostitute at least I can get some human connection. But same thing with like approaching, like if you just keep doing something over and over and over and over and over again, it keeps failing. There's something you're missing, and you're probably not going to find it by repeating it again and again. You need someone who will be able to point out the blind spot. So hire a coach, find a mentor, find somebody who's good, and ask him to like hang out with you, watch what he does, and then ask him for his feedback on what you do. But you got to find you need another set of eyes, basically.
Yeah, very true. Since you've been around since the early days, how has pickup changed? Was 2000s era pickup the way it was because culture and girls were different before social media? Question for you.
There are some differences, but I would say it's not as much difference. I think especially with like social media, guys tend to think that social media has a bigger impact on girls offline than it does. So like when she's on social media, she's on social media, but when she's not on social media, then she's not on social media. She's out in the world. And so like it was somewhat influenced by how things were at the time, because people were, so the thing about the earlier 2000s was people were just more sociable, right? There's more social skills, and you could go out and talk to girls and they were better at talking back. Whereas now the social skills have degraded. And it's interesting, it's even not just Gen Z, but like older people too, like millennials, their social skills are also worse now than they used to be, because millennials too, like older generations, Gen X, whoever, they're all spending a lot more time online. And if you don't get practice, your skills rust over. So you'll see this more where I think it's easier for guys that are advanced now because there's not as much competition. But guys that are starting out, it's harder than it was before. Because before you could go out and like girls would help you along more, and they're contributing more to the conversation. And even if they're not into you, they're like, well, I want to be sociable. I want to encourage this guy a little bit because it's cool that he's talking. Or if they are into you, then they're looking for ways to help out. More and more girls don't know what to do, or you get like the deer in the headlights. And you really got to be able to take control of the conversation and steer it. And if you don't have those skills built up, then the learning curve is tougher. There's less support there. And one other difference I would say is that the proving grounds for guys for a long time back in the day was bars and nightclubs, because you can go out, it's dark, it's mysterious, you can make some approaches, and if you bomb totally, you just disappear into the darkness, fade away, and go to the other corner of the bar, switch to the bar next door, and now nobody knows who you are. Whew. I guess, all right, I don't have to worry about that girl, unless you see her walk in the door, and you're like, oh no, there she is again. But what happened with the Tinder explosion in Tinder was 2012, I think they opened the doors, was 2011, but then it really started blowing up 2015. So what would happen before was like a lot of the girls that were like looking to hook up would go out to bars and nightclubs. But once you had dating apps, then girls that want to hook up can just be like, oh, I can just go on the app. Like I don't want to hang out with my friends. I just want to get laid. And before she would have to go out to nightlife, but now she's like, I'll just don't fire up Tinder, do some swiping until I find a guy that looks sexy enough, and then I'll go over to his place and bang him. So you had less and less of recently. There's just fewer and fewer girls that want to get laid that are going to bars and nightclubs, and guys stopped going to them as much. It's like the nightlife industry in a whole lot of cities is like half of what it was before, and there's still girls that go out that want to hook up. And I think the big differentiator you'll see is that the girls who are extroverts who want to get laid will still go to bars and nightclubs. But the introvert girls who used to like force themselves to bars and nightclubs are like, it's the only way I'm going to get laid. Those girls are all on apps now. So it's slashed the proportion of like horny girls that are out in bars and nightclubs. And you also see like guys also being more introverted or like, I don't want to go to the bar or nightclub. It's too loud and I can't talk to anyone. And like everyone is so fake there. So all those guys either do apps or they want to learn day game. And day game is, in my opinion, a much harder learning curve just because of the approach anxiety. And again, because you got to be able to handle the first 2 minutes of conversation more or less by yourself until the girl, she's not in, it's not like a bar. She's been talking to people. She's socially lubricated. Day game, she's on her way somewhere. She's sitting in the park. She's not thinking about like talking to random people. So you walk up to her and she's like, oh, there's a man talking to me. What's going on? Okay, smile and be nice, but I don't know what to do. So you got to ease her through it and pull her into a conversation and get her to the point where she's into it and enjoying it. And she starts thinking like, oh, actually, this guy's kind of cool. But it's like a couple of skills that you need to make that happen. So the combination of like girls now with like worse social skills than what they used to have, and then the guys also are starting out with worse social skills in general, and then bars and nightclubs are a lot less than what they used to be. And it used to be like there was like stuff like a major city, you've got like stuff going on almost every night of the week in different bars. There's like salsa night or like, you know, ladies night on Wednesday and like all these different singles events, and there's less and less of that even in really big cities. So there's just like fewer opportunities. And kind of like the decline of third spaces. So I think it's harder for guys that are starting now. It's probably part of why you've seen this decline. And also guys gravitate towards apps. That's the other thing. It's like, as you know, like you get good on apps, you can do really well. But a lot of guys get on apps, they don't know what they're doing. And it becomes a thing where he's like, I don't want to go out. I want to talk to girls, but I guess I'll just go on the app. But he doesn't know what he's doing there either. And he just does a lot of swiping and gets himself frustrated. And guys too, you've got the studies on it. Guys that do apps it's like a confidence damager. Like guys get a lot more self-conscious about their looks, and that's going to bleed over into approaching. Like you're going to go out and talk to girls, but now you're like, oh, I'm probably not good looking enough for her because you've been hanging out on the apps too much. You get looks focused, and there's just all these things that bleed together that make it more obstacles for guys starting out now than what there used to be, which is a shame. But on the other side of that, once you get the baseline of skills, there's a lot less real competition. Like the guys on social media are not competition. Most of the guys that are on a dating app are not competition. Like, you know, there's guys like you that are really skilled, but most of the guys that are sending her messages are like, it's really lame stuff. They know what they're doing. Even if they look good, she's like, this guy's lame.
That is true. I can vouch for that. Yeah, that's I think that's a good answer. I'm gonna, while you answer this, I'm just gonna turn my AC on. But what 4 books about game would Chase recommend, and what 4 books not about game would Chase recommend for learning game? So I don't even know if there's 4 books that exist about game, but yeah, I'll let you take this one away.
Oh, there's a ton of them. I wish I could say that I was well read enough on books in game that I could. Okay, so yeah, I can give some recommendations. So I'll just tell the ones that I personally like. So of course, I will vouch for my own book, How to Make Girls Chase, which I wrote to be. So initially, I didn't plan to stick around in the dating and seduction space. So I kind of wrote it as like I'm about to leave. But let me just write down everything that I do and the way that I think about game in its current state. That way, at least I got a book. I can put it out there, I can share my knowledge, and if I ever forget, you know, if I get into like a long-term relationship, don't go out for a long time, at least I can just leaf back through my book and be like, oh, that's what I was doing. Okay, I got to do that again. So I recommend my own book, of course, and you know, guys will call that like the seduction Bible or whatever, and I think it's pretty good. But I'll also say, if you want the simple understanding of game, there's a little known book that I really liked called The System by a guy named Roy Valentine. I read that early on. It's very simple, but it breaks down approaching into basically 3 categories of girls. When you go out, there are the girls who are not interested in anything with you at all, which is like most of the girls that you meet. And you just you know, when you meet those girls, you figure that out quickly. You tell them have a nice day, and you move on. You don't worry about it. You know, she's in a relationship, whatever. She's got things. You don't worry about that. And you don't even count it as a rejection because most of those girls are in relationships. You know, 80% of the women that you meet are going to be in relationships. Which is one of the things. Like guys will go out and approach, and they get a bunch of rejections, and they're like, what's going on? It must be something wrong with me. Like most of those girls, statistically speaking, were already in committed relationships. And yeah, you know, some girls will cheat. Some girls are like looking for the next option, especially girls that are on the outs in their existing relationship. But most girls that are in a relationship are not looking to cheat.
Yeah, that's true.
So then you got like another chunk of women who are the girls that will go out on dates with you. And that's like, there's a small, but I forget what Roy was put in his book. I think he was like 90% of women won't be interested at all. And like 7% of women will like be down to go on a date with you, like 7-8%. And when you meet those girls, you talk to them, you have a good little interaction with them, and you get their phone number. And then like 2 to 3% of women are down for something to happen right now. And those are the girls you're really kind of looking for when you're out. Like, because if you see those, then you got to act now, like make something happen right now. She's down, so you look for the signs. So he breaks it down in his book, like how do you recognize which girl goes into which camp, and then what does he recommend you do with that? And I think just for getting the mindset that women fall into these 3 camps, and you're looking to see which camp she falls into, I think that book is very useful. That served me well. When I first got into pickup, I read that right away, and that's kind of influenced me the entire way. And I don't hear enough guys talking about that you have girls that are in these different, they're looking for something different. And you got to figure out what she's looking for, and if that, you know, then you decide how to proceed with her.
That's true.
I would also recommend Swing Cat's book, Real World Seduction. So he's an old school seducer. He's the guy that really introduced me to seduction. I found his stuff randomly online, and I read his book, and I was like, this is brilliant. Because I've been cold approaching girls for a year, and I was running into a problem. I had this really hot girl that I met in a nightclub, and I kept running into her in nightclubs, and I couldn't get her out onto dates. And we had like this good vibe, but I was like, all right, I got to like figure out a way to make out with her in the club because I'm not able to extract her out of here. If I want to progress it, I got to kiss her, but how do I do that? So I'm like searching online. I was like, how to kiss a girl in a nightclub. And I was like reading all this stuff, and I was like, these guys don't know what they're talking about. It's because, you know, they're like how to be like a nice guy or whatever. It's like all this stupid stuff. And then I found Swing Cat, and I was like, holy shit, this guy knows what he's doing. I could tell right away, like this guy knows his stuff. So I bought his book, and it was like opened my eyes. I was like, this guy. It's great stuff. And he's got a second version out now, which I reread recently, and it's all really good. And his stuff is about like how to create a flirtation, how to banter with girls, how to create this stuff is prizing. It's I am the prize. Swing Cat's where it comes from. It's how do you create an effect on girl that she starts to see you as the prize. So now she wants to chase after you and get you into bed because you're the sexual prize. And she wants to win you over. So that's a formative book in my opinion. And then I think it's worth reading Neil Strauss's book, The Game, just for motivation. It gives you like a good overview of some of the terminology. Maybe some of the terminologies are a little bit dated, but like it's motivating. But if you want if you would rather a more technical manual, so the other thing that I could recommend is David Wright. There's a guy called David Riker, and he's got the Speed Seduction Conversation Manual. And it is the most comprehensive book on conversation that you'll ever find. It's super advanced conversation tech. And talked about it with some other seducers. I don't know anyone that's finished the book. It's so meaty. It's got so many exercises. But if you want to get mastery at seductive conversation, then that's the book. So those would be my picks. And yeah, those are my picks.
Yeah, interesting. I've never heard of any single one of these books, but this sound cool. Alex, can I pay you to hang out with me for a few hours and see what I'm doing wrong with cold approach? I don't trust any other coaches. Sure, yeah, like a mini boot camp. Yeah, just hit me up. We can discuss it.
Good choice.
User, okay, let's see. Hey Chase, appreciate work. Okay. Hey Chase, appreciate all the work you do. After learning a lot of theory, you inspired me to start cold approaching consistently. I recently did my 30th approach. I had a date tomorrow. Have a date tomorrow. Any tips?
Yeah, sure. Congratulations, man. 30 approaches, got one date, doing well.
I think I must have done 100 and 300 approaches before I had my first date. Like I wasn't even realizing I was doing approaches because I didn't even know about game. I was just drunkenly walking around like fucking my college parties and hey, and yeah, getting rejected. But anyway, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So first off, I recommend something like, so you probably got like a date plan already, but try to stick to the 5 C's of dating, which are keep it cheap so that money doesn't become an issue, which can make things awkward.
I like
Keep it
that
convenient. Convenient, so it shouldn't be somewhere too far away for you, hopefully not for her, and not something where you gotta like run all over the place. Just make it convenient and easy. Once again, to remove an obstacle from the date. All this is about removing as many obstacles as possible. Should be somewhere where you can have conversation. Not a loud dance club, probably not a movie theater, but somewhere that the two of you can talk. Make it covert, so that there aren't going to be people around that know who you are, because that can influence things. She's got like her friends popping in. Oh, hey, Susie, and you're like, oh no, what do I do? I got to impress the friends now. Makes it weird.
Susie, you fucking bitch! Turn around and get the fuck out.
Get her out of here. And then control. It should be something where you don't want her dictating the date plan. You want to be able to lead her. So, she's like, oh, I've got all these ideas about what we can do. And like, let's figure out something where you're the one that's setting the pace. Because when the girl takes control of the date, it pretty much never goes the way you want it to. And the girls can be very well-meaning, but typically they're not very good at putting together a good seduction. And it's harder to seduce girls when you're in the follower role. So cheap, convenient, conversation, covert, control. Get those in place. It'll make it easier. And then the other thing, another thing I'll recommend is come equipped with like a short, recent, interesting story in case you meet up with her and you're like, oh no, what do I talk about? I'm not sure. So you can just have a little story at the ready, so you got something that you can jump into. Be like, oh man, this crazy thing happened to me recently. It doesn't have to be anything super interesting. Like, you tried out some new food place and the food was really good, but they got like a weird decoration on the walls or whatever. It was like freaking me out the whole time I was eating. Whatever it was.
Penises everywhere. There's like a penis statue. There was the food came in like penis arrangement. It was really weird, but it was delicious.
I had no idea going in either.
I looks like an old eat that dick in 10 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah. So just bring that in with you. And then the other thing is if you start getting that feeling like she's waiting for something to happen, then make something happen. And probably not kiss her in public. If you start feeling like you should kiss her, it's usually better to kiss her once you're in private. So if you start feeling like something needs to happen, then either propose that you go for a walk, change venues, or invite her back to your place. Oh, one other one I'll give you is seed. Whatever the cool thing is that you have at your place that you want to use as your excuse to pull later, seed it earlier on in the conversation. So like if you got like a really great boo earlier on in the conversation, be like, yeah, I just moved to this new place. It's got like an amazing view of the city, oversell it a little bit. That way, when you come back to it later, be like, hey, let's go check out that view I have. It's already seated in there and it's a much more natural pull. So if you do those things, then you got a more likely scenario for it. And if you're a little gun shy and you don't want to make it happen on the first date, that's okay. If it's your first date ever, I'm not sure, or just first date for cold approach. In that case, don't push it too far on the first date, because you want her to feel like everything went according to your plan. So then you just end it in kind of a romantic way and let her wonder about if she's going to see you again. That way she's excited for the next one. Just don't create something where you're pushing, and then you don't get there, and then she's like, oh, he was trying to make it happen, but he failed. I guess that was fate. It was destiny. It wasn't meant to be. Now she'll be resistant to a meetup. So make sure that however you end it, try to end it on your terms.
Yeah, I generally agree. I would say here's how I would explain it: stack the logistics in your favor. So I don't do any date that's not walking distance from my house. Now, granted, I live like kind of in the city. If I lived in the suburbs, I would just do the closest bar. Maybe it requires a drive. That's fine. But if there's bars walking distance to your place, then do those. Always stack logistics in your favor. Generally, I have an idea of what the venue is before I take the girl there, unless I'm like traveling or something. It's still usually I check it out beforehand. I think it's a good idea. You don't want to, like you said, you don't want a place that's loud. You don't want a place that's too distracting. I think you want something chill. Ideally, I like outdoor venues. I think those are the best, especially when there's not too many people. So it's kind of a little bit more intimate. I generally speaking, when it comes to going for the pull, kind of what I do. This is what RSD Julian kind of recommended, and before he became lame, and I kind of agree with this. Is I'll just say like, let's get out of here, and let's go to another spot. I know somewhere even more dope, and then I'll just lead her to my place, and most of the time it works out. But again, that's kind of because there's a lot of sexual tension that's already being built. So leads me to the next point, which is build sexual tension. I almost always try to close on the first date. I feel like the sex is like the ultimate form of investment for a girl. So I mean, it might be like 5 or 10 exceptions in my whole life, but I usually try to close on the first date. I do agree though, if you come really close to sex, but it doesn't happen, quite often you don't get another chance, but not always. Like with my current girlfriend, we came very close to sex, but we didn't have sex on the first date, and then we hooked up on the second date. So depends on the girl, but yeah, just don't like fucking try to impress her with like the venue or whatever. Don't be like, I'm gonna take her to this really fancy place or whatever. Just don't do that. Focus on logistics.
Good tips. And Alex, just to let you know, I've got to hop off in about 9 minutes here. I've got a client call coming up.
Okay, no worries. Let's do like 2 more questions and then we can bounce. I think there are diminishing returns with women. Are men with body count of 300 really that much happier than men with body? No, I don't think they are. I don't think there's a correlation between your happiness and body count. I know people with very high body counts who are depressed. I know people with relatively low body counts who are happy. The only thing I do know is that if your body count is 0 or you're like not able to have success with women at all, then you're going to be much more likely to be less happy. I've seen that before, but yeah, you can be a body count of like 10 or 20 and you're just, a relationship guy. One of my best friends is like that. He just usually, he just into relationships and he seems very happy. So yeah, that's my answer. What do you think?
Yeah, certainly. And I would say that it somewhat depends on the guy. There's a lot of guys that have a certain need to get to a certain point sexually, and if they haven't gotten to that point, then they feel unsatisfied. There's different emotional drivers for it. But most guys will have a point where they reach a point where they're like, okay, I did it. I did what I needed to, and then they get out of the, like, I don't need to stack more notches anymore. You also have guys that are like, got the sex addict guys that are just want to get new pussy all the time. So for those guys, it's not even really like they'll have high notch counts, but it's not about getting the notches. It's just like they want pussy, they want new pussy, and you get the Coolidge effect. Something we were just talking about in the community. Like you're just kind of getting tired of girls after a short while. So that's another one. Just kind of depends on the guy, his sex drive, what's driving and motivating him. But there's not really like there's not something where like there's no objective thing where you're like if you get to like this notch count, then you're gonna be happy. You're like, I did it. Like I can be happy for the rest of my life. I got to that notch number. There's no checkbox there. You get like the guy that's like he married the first girl he slept with, and he's got his 20 kids, and he's like really happy. He's like, my life is great. So I mean, certainly the case. It's just like whatever. We've all had different things we're looking for. Like what's the thing you're looking for, and then try to make sure you get the right thing, because you will get the guys that have like high notch counts, but they're like all with like girls that they're not really that into. And they'll have like a moment of like a crisis of faith where they're like, I've seen this happen with guys like, all right, I reached triple digit notches and like I'm really unhappy. And I realized I'm not sleeping with the girls that I want. And like those are the guys that like turn religious or something because they're like, what I've been doing isn't working. I got to do something radically different.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas a lot of times it's like, dude, just like change up your targeting. You've got the skills, just target the right girl instead of like,
yeah. But they prefer the easy W's rather than putting in a little bit more work. So they've gotten like lazy almost with the process. Yeah. All right. One last question. RSD Tyler said all women will cheat and leave if her partner loses frame or she's pursued by a guy with a stronger frame. Is this true? My opinion, no. Definitely not all women. Some women, yes. But I don't think it's even close to all women. Some women are just way more likely to cheat than others. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
I would say, what they say about generalities, right? Generalities are always wrong. Bit of a pun there, not pun, meta. But anyway, so like nothing is always true all the time. I would say that when you look at cheating in relationships, it almost always comes, unless she's a nymphomaniac, It's not usually happening in the middle of the relationship. Most of the cheating that women do happens towards the tail end of the relationship when things are falling apart. And that will be, and the guy will be losing frame at that point. Because if you don't lose frame, you can pretty much always keep your relationship together. So guys, the frame loss happens when the relationship's falling apart. So there is 100% a correlation there. Because, when she's with you, if you're holding frame, even if she's like got doubts, she's unhappy with the relationship, if you're still holding frame, then she's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I guess things are fine. And really only will fall apart at that point if she's just really unsatisfied and just not meeting the needs that she has. As far as meeting a guy with a stronger frame, depends on like the relative levels of frame strength difference and also how invested she is in the relationship and then her own qualities. So like if she's with a guy who has a really, really weak frame, and she meets a really sexy seducer guy with like a really strong frame, he's like, come with me, do this, whatever. Then yeah, okay. But already at that point, like the guy that she's with has a really weak frame, is already broken. If you've got like, I don't know how to compare these. If your frame is like 85 out of 100 and she meets a guy whose frame is like 93 out of 100 and everything else is good in the relationship and she's not an info, she's probably not going to cheat on you. Like if your frame is like 30 out of 100 and she meets a guy who's like a 90 out of 100, then maybe. So like, you should, that's the thing in relationships. You want to have a strong frame. Don't want to be like the weak dude in the relationship. You want to do that. But the thing with frames is if it gets too weak, she feels unsafe. She's like, this guy's, I don't know what's going on with this guy. And if you're like a normal guy in a relationship, and the relationship is healthy, you're not going to have a weak frame unless there's something really weird going on, because you'll get comfortable with the girl and you kind of know what you are and where you are, and it doesn't really happen. So again, it's like something that happens normally towards the tail end of the relationships when guys' frames start collapsing. And at that point, she's opened up to like another guy who can come in so that she can leapfrog out of the relationship. So most girls aren't just going to be like, okay, I'm done with this relationship, cut you off, I'm going to be totally single. Like girls want to have the monkey branch thing, right? She wants to have her backup options ready, so that it's a safety net. She wants to make sure that she's going to be okay. There's going to be some guy there for her no matter what happens. So girls usually start lining up their options before they leave. But I think a lot of guys see that and they're like, girls cheat. And it's like, oh, she was on her way out of the relationship already. That's why that was happening.
Yeah, well said, man. But anyway, great chat. So tell people where they can find you. Tell people about your program and all that.
Sure. So if you like my stuff, you can go to GirlsChase.com. Maybe we got thousands of articles on there. You can go read the articles, but a lot of times guys get in and like, I'm not sure what to do or where to start. So we got a couple of options there. You can go to the Start Here page, which you can find a link on the homepage, or I think it's just girlschase.com/start-here. And we got some articles that'll take you through it. Another option is you can take our diagnostic quiz, which will figure out where you are with girls right now and ask you a few questions. That's at girlschase.com/quiz. And then based on the result, it'll tell you your score and give you a book that's tailored to your current position. It's going to give you recommendations for what to work on and also articles to check out on our site that'll help get you into our library of content. So I think those are probably the most useful places. That'll also get you on our newsletter list. I send out a bunch of newsletters with all kinds of content that guys seem to really love. And again, that's girlschase.com/quiz. If you're really excited about me and you want to jump right into my stuff, I've got my book that I mentioned earlier, How to Make Girls Chase. And that's about my method for getting girls chasing after you. We also talk about the system I talked about earlier, value, attainability, compliance, which wasn't originally my own, but I adopted into this very useful system for managing attraction. So that's you can find the links for that book on my site. I also have a flagship program called One Date, which is geared towards, like you were saying earlier, taking a girl to bed on the first date. So we talk about how to do that there, and I introduced my own upgraded attraction model, which was drawn from, so I already had a thing I was doing where I was like, when I talk to girls, like I'm always getting the connection and turning them on and getting them invested. And I wanted to make it like scientifically valid. So I read thousands of research papers on attraction and dating and everything. And I found that scientists were referring consistently to attitude, similarity, arousal, and then compliance. We're talking about leadership and attraction. So the SAC system is similarity. She needs to feel similar to you, and that builds trust, which is necessary for things to move forward. Arousal, she's got to be excited and turned on. And there are different ways to create that arousal and compliance. And one of the things that we see, like most guys that are doing like the nice guy thing will be focused on trying to build similarity, and then they don't build arousal or compliance at all. So like they'll have really good connections with girls and they'll fall into the friend zone. But then you also get the guys that are like pure arousal based. They're just like teasing and touching and trying to turn girls on, but they don't build the similarity. So at some point it collapses because she gets turned on. But then as soon as there's a break, trying to get her home, whatever, there's a transition point. When the arousal gets interrupted, there's no connection to fall back on, and then it falls apart. So the SAC system is designed to prevent that because you get all three of the elements in there so that she's got the trust from all the similarity build, she's aroused, and then there's the compliance. So she's invested and she wants to go on and keep going. So that is my one date system. You can find it at girlschase.com/one-date. And there's a video there. I talk about how to get that going and give you more perspective on it. So that's my flagship. We got other programs too, but you'll find out that stuff on the website. But that is the overview of things that you can get that'll get you into our stuff.
Good stuff. So if you guys are watching this on repeat, we're going to have the links in the description. So Chase, just on X, just send me all your links and I'll put all those in the description so people can easily find them. But yeah, awesome. Dude, thanks so much for coming on. I think you and I agree on like 98, 99% of shit. And I think you have a way of explaining things that's very, very good. Yeah, I pride myself on that, but I think you do a very good job, maybe even better job than me. So yeah, definitely encourage guys to check out the website at the very least. Some very good articles on there. Some ones that I personally learned from, especially the LMR articles that I mentioned, but I'm sure there's like a million good ones that I haven't even checked out yet. So definitely check out girlschase.com. And I now have an article on there, so all the more reason. So show your boy Alex and chase some love. And check out his website. He's got really good, you're not going to regret it. He's got really, really good stuff on there. And like literally it's free. Like you just read the articles. Really, really good stuff. Like shit that you would expect like to be paying a lot of money for type of thing. So definitely check it out. And yeah, man, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Alex. Great being here.
Yeah, always a pleasure.